hope you can see the screen. Can you see the screen? Screen കാണാൻ പറ്റുന്നുണ്ടോ? Okay, okay, Anshi. So, yesterday we were discussing about the different types of files generated after cross compilation, and there were 5 different files. We had discussed around 4 of them, and we have. Do you remember the 4 files which we had discussed earlier? Do you remember the names of 4 files that are generated after cross compilation or after cross assembling process? Can you name the files? Do you remember them? Answer. Answer ഓർമ്മയുണ്ടോ ഇതൊക്കെയാണ് ഫയൽസ് പറഞ്ഞിരുന്ന കഴിഞ്ഞ ക്ലാസ്സിലൊക്കെ? ഹലോ അർജുൻ, ഒരു അനക്കമില്ല. വീണ്ടും പ്രസന്റ് ആണോ? അശ്വതി, ഏതൊക്കെ ഫയൽസിനാണ് നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞത് കഴിഞ്ഞ ക്ലാസ്സിൽ? 5 ഡിഫറെന്റ് ഫയൽസ് ജനറേറ്റ് ചെയ്യും ക്രോസ് കമ്പൈലേഷൻ പ്രോസസ്സിൽ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. അതിൽ 4 എണ്ണം പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞു. ഏതൊക്കെയായിരുന്നു? എനിവൺ? ആർക്കെങ്കിലും പറയാം? You can type in your chat box. ഒന്നും ഓർമ്മയില്ല? ഒരു ഫയൽ പോലും ഓർമ്മയില്ല? Four different files generated after cross compilation. I had said the first file was list file with .lst extension. Then second is the preprocessor output file, and the extension of this particular file is cross compiler dependent. That's why we are not writing the extension. Then the third kind of file was object file with .obj extension. The fourth kind of file was the map file with .map extension, and the last file is hex file .hex extension. These are the 5 files generated as a result of cross compilation. So this is a short question for university. And we have discussed about the contents of each of these files, and we have reached the last file, hex file. And this file we had come across earlier. This hex, we had come across this process earlier. That is, we are in the conversion of high-level language to machine language conversion process, or during the conversion of assembly language to machine language conversion process. This was the last stage. That is the object to hex file conversion process. There is a program called the object to hex file converter, and this converter will convert the object file, that is the absolute object file, to machine code. And this converter, which will convert and store the absolute object file, which has been converted to machine code, in a file called the hex file. So this particular hex file will contain the machine code corresponding to the high-level program that you had written. So machine code, as you know, it is in the form of zeros and ones. So this conversion, the entire contents of this file will be in the form of zeros and ones, and it is and the zeros and ones stored will be in the hex file format, hexadecimal number format. And the conversion follows ASCII code conversion. That is the ASCII, it is stored as ASCII codes. So this is the last step where you get the machine code, and the machine code will be stored in the hex file, and this hex file has the extension .hex. And this conversion is done by the object to hex file converter program. Okay. So this file, since it contains zeros and ones, we call it as the binary executable file. Hex file is also called binary executable file. Is it clear? Hex file is also called binary executable file because this file contains the machine code of the source code that you had written. And the source code can be either in high-level language or in assembly language. whichever language you have written, it is converted to a machine code, and this machine code is stored inside the file called the hex file with extension .hex. So it is called, this hex file is also called binary executable file, and the code normally followed is the ASCII code format, and each row of the X file is a record, and this record will be stored as ASCII codes. Okay, is it clear to you? Okay, so these are the 5 files generated during cross compilation. I know it is purely theoretical and you have to by heart all. Hello, am I audible to you? Hello, okay, okay. So now we are going to the next section. So with this, we are coming to the end of the different kinds of files generated during cross compilation. It was a pretty big section, and also you have to by heart most of the contents in that file. Okay. So now we are going to the last section of this module, that is simulators, emulators, and debuggers. The last section, simulators, emulators, and debuggers. And before that, we had come across these terms earlier also, that is disassemblers and decompilers. What is a disassembler? What is a decompiler? I just written the definition once again here. What is a disassembler and what is a decompiler? Can anyone say what is a disassembler? Disassembler and decompiler. We had studied about cross compilers. Now this is another term, decompiler. What is decompiler? I think it was discussed earlier. It is just the opposite of compiler, decompiler. What does a compiler do? What does a compiler do? Anyone? Amal Santosh? Ashwin? Atul? Nobody is responding. Okay, what does a compiler do? What is the function of a compiler? Atul? Kajar? Okay, source code to object code conversion. Source code. What with the source code is it a high level language or a low level language? Source code. High level language, isn't it? Compilers always take high level language, and it doesn't take low level language such as an assembly language. Always compilers convert high level language to machine code. And so what is decompiler? I said it is the opposite of compilation. So what is a decompiler? Compiler converts high level language to machine language. So what is a decompiler? Just the opposite process. Okay, low level means machine language to high level language. So because compiler's output is a machine language format, so to convert it back, a machine code back to its high level language program, we use decompilers. Okay, decompilers convert as a machine code to high level source code. So it is a utility program which converts decompiler. It's a utility program for translating machine code because machine code is generated after compilation. So the reverse process will take the machine code and it will convert it into its corresponding high-level language code, high-level language instructions. So decompiler is the opposite of compiler. Compiler converts high-level language program into machine code, whereas decompiler converts machine code into its corresponding high-level language instructions. Okay, that is what decompiler does. That is the reverse process of compilation, converting machine code back into its high-level language instructions. So it is a reverse process. It is the reverse operation of compiler, what compiler does, or even cross compilers generate machine code. So these machine codes can be converted back to its high-level language instructions if we are using the decompiler program. Then also similarly, disassembler, it does the opposite function of assembler. What does an assembler do? Assembler program, what does it do? What does an assembler program do? Mridula, what is an assembler program? What is the purpose of an assembler program? Saurabh, Subin, why no one is responding? Assembler program alla cheyanamma. It converts assembly language to machine language. Assembler is a program that takes as input an assembly language program and converts it into machine code. So assembler converts assembly language to machine language. So disassembler, it does the opposite function of assembler. So what does disassembler do? Anyone? Okay, what does disassembler? Machine language into assembly language code. Okay. This assembler converts the machine language into its corresponding assembly language instructions. Just the opposite. Is it clear? It is a utility program. It is again a program which converts the machine code into its target processor specific assembly code or assembly instructions. So assembly codes are usually written for one particular processor, and that processor is called the target processor. So in this assembler program, it will convert the machine code back into the target processor's assembly code. And assembly code differs for different processors, and each processor has its own instruction set. So the code generated depends on the target processor code instruction set. Okay. And this process of the process is called disassembling process, or decompilation. The process done by the decompiler is called decompilation process. So these are utility programs that does reverse process, and so it is deployed in reverse engineering process. That is, if you want to generate the high-level language code given a machine language, then these programs help us to generate the high-level language code or the assembly language code. Decompiler helps us to generate the high-level language code, and disassembler helps us to generate the assembly code. And the advantage is that these are powerful tools for analyzing the presence of malicious codes. Suppose you had written a program and somebody else is trying to modify your program without your knowledge. Someone else is interfering with the program, somebody is adding new code to your program or changing your code, and this help if you are disassembling your program, then it will generate the corresponding high-level language code, and you can compare that high-level language code with the code that you had written. If there is a mismatch in the code, then it is easier. You can find out that somebody has changed your code, somebody has accessed your code and modified your code. So this is a powerful tool for detecting malicious. Also, if somebody is adding some new code into your program, then that can also be detected using decompilation or disassembling process. So these tools, they can be free tools. There are free tools available, open source tools available, or there can be commercial tools also which we need to buy, or it can use free or open source tools. Then it is used for generating source code, and the generated source code we can compare the generated source code with the original source code, and the generated source code may always will not be the original replica of the source code that you had written, but you will get an idea. Most of the code that is in the source code will match with the generated code by the decompiler or the disassembler. It may not generate exact replica of the original code, but mostly the important instructions that you had written will be generated by this utility program. So this is disassembler or decompiler. Okay, the code generated by them, that is after the reverse process, they are trying to generate the high-level language code, or they are trying to generate the assembly code. But the code generated depends on the utility program. It may or may not generate the exact replica, but there will be more than 50% match with your original code. Is it clear? Hello? Any doubt? Slide ഞാനിപ്പോൾ മാറ്റിയതാണ്. I'm not presenting this screen. ഇത് ഇടയ്ക്ക് വെച്ച് നിന്നു പോയോ സ്ലൈഡ്? ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ, ഇപ്പൊ കാണാമോ? ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ, ഇപ്പൊ കാണാമോ? ആ ശരി. സോ ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞത് ഇത്രേ ഉള്ളൂ. ഡിസസംപ്ലറും ഡീകമ്പൈലറിനെ കുറിച്ചാണ് പറഞ്ഞത്. ഓക്കെ, what is a disassembler program, what is a decompiler program? Disassembler എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ it is a utility program which converts machine code into assembly code. അതായത് assembler converts assembly code to machine code, whereas disassembler converts machine code back to its assembly code. Reverse process ചെയ്യുന്നതാണ് disassembler. Assembler program എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് it converts assembly code to machine code, whereas disassembler does the reverse process of assembler and it converts machine code back to its assembly code. And this assembly code will be target processor dependent, because assembly language is specific for each processor. The instruction set varies for different processors, so the assembly code also varies for different processors. So that is disassembler process, and that conversion process is called disassembling. It is complementary to the assembling process. It is complementary to assembling process or the cross assembling process. Either assembling or cross assembling will generate a machine code from the assembly code. So to convert back to assembly code, the machine code back to assembly code, we use the disassembler program. Okay, any doubt? So what is disassembler? What is a disassembler program? What is a disassembler program does? In simple terms, what does a disassembler program does? Tabna. Okay, okay. Machine code to assembly code. The reverse process of assembler program. Assembler program, it converts assembly code to machine code, whereas disassembler program will convert machine code back to its assembly code. And that process is called disassembling. It is complementary process of assembling or cross assembling. Now, what is a decompiler? Same like that, there is another process going on, that is called decompilation process, and it is done by a program called the decompiler program. Again, it is a utility program for translating machine code. A run program, assembler, disassembling, decompilation, machine code. Machine code converting, and it's converted back to its high level language instruction, and that is done by the decompiler. So decompiler converts the machine code back to its high level language instructions. So that is, it performs the reverse operation of compilation or cross compilation. Cross compiler or compiler the opposite process is done by the decompiler. That is converting machine code back to high level language code. In assembly, the disassembler will convert machine code to assembly code, whereas decompiler will convert machine code to high level language instructions. So these are the two utility programs for getting back the original source code, which is written in high level language or assembly language. So where do we find its use? Where do we find the application of these two utility programs? It is deployed in reverse engineering process. Reverse engineering process is the process of identifying the technology behind a particular process, or you're trying to find out what is the original code. So in that case, we can apply the disassembler or a decompiler to the machine code and find out the original source code. So this is called reverse engineering process. So these two utility programs are often employed in reverse engineering process. Another area where we use this is to detect malicious code. Suppose your code has been changed, or somebody has written some malicious code into your source code. If you're using a disassembler program, you can convert the machine code back to its original code and check if it you can compare the code you have written with the code that has been generated by the disassembler or the decompiler. If they do not match, then we can see that some changes has been made to the original source code. So for the detecting such malicious code, we can use decompilers or disassemblers. Then these tools, they are mostly available as free tools, or it can be we can also purchase it. It's also available as commercial tools. Then the code that has been generated by these tools, they may not be an exact replica of the source code, but there is a resemblance to the original code. They may not be an exact replica, but there can be a resemblance, more than 50% resemblance to the original code. Okay, so these are the areas where we use decompilers and disassemblers. Is it clear? Okay. So now I'm going to the next section, the last section, that is simulators, emulators, and debugging process. What is a simulator, or what are simulators? Have you heard of simulators? Have you heard of simulators and emulators? So simulators, they are software tools. The first main difference between simulator and emulator is that simulators are software tools and emulators are hardware tools. Okay, that is the main difference between simulator and emulator. Simulators are software tools, whereas emulators are hardware tools. Okay, did you understand this first point? Yes, so first point that should come to your mind when speaking of simulators and emulators is that simulators are software tools and emulators are hardware tools. And both these tools help us in developing embedded products, developing and testing embedded products. So for an embedded product, we have both hardware part as well as software part, and the software that is embedded in a hardware is called firmware. So we have both hardware part as well as firmware part. So to test this hardware and firmware, we can use simulators and emulators. Okay, so let us see what its functions are. So simulators. Simulators simulate the target hardware. That is, it is a software tool, and this software tool will simulate all the functions of the target hardware. So we do not have the target hardware in order to test our firmware. If we have the simulator will generate the target hardware. It is a software tool that acts as a hardware part, and you can embed your firmware. You can test your firmware execution using this simulator. So if the target hardware is not ready, then we can use the simulator to test our firmware. So simulators simulate the target hardware. Actually, the actual hardware may not be ready at that time, but if the firmware is ready, then we can test the firmware using the simulators, and simulators will simulate the target hardware, and the firmware execution can be inspected using simulators. So it substitutes the target hardware. This is software that runs in a PC, and it will substitute the target hardware, and you can check the firmware execution using the simulator software. So that is why we call it as a simulator tool, a software tool for simulating the functionalities of the application software. It is a software tool. Simulators are software tools that simulate the target hardware. Is it clear? What is a simulator? What is a simulator? Is it a software tool or a hardware tool? Okay, it is a software tool, and what does this software tool do? Vishnu, what is the use of this software tool? Yes, it simulates the target hardware. So we needn't have the target hardware. If we have the simulator software, we can test this firmware using this simulator, because it substitutes the target hardware. And if this tool is available, then firmware execution happens at a faster rate. We needn't wait for the hardware part to be developed. If we have these simulator software, then we can the firmware developers can continue their development process. Okay, so development becomes faster. Is it clear? Okay, so simulators, they simulate the target hardware, and the firmware execution can be inspected. You can check the execution of firmware, inspect the execution of firmware using simulators. It is a software tool. Now, what are the features of simulator-based debugging? You are going to test your firmware using a simulator, and we call it a simulator-based debugging. And what are the features of a simulator-based debugging process? First feature is that it is purely software-based. We are not using any hardware units. We are just installing the simulator into your PC and running your firmware in this simulator, just to test whether the firmware works well. So we call it as a purely software-based debugging process. Then, second feature is that it don't require the target system. As we said earlier, it doesn't require the target system, because the simulator, it simulates all the functionalities of the target system, so it does not require a target system. And it is very primitive. Very primitive means it lacks all the input-output functionalities. We have to give an input through the registers. We will get the output also using registers. So it doesn't support all the functionalities. So we say that it has limited functionalities, and that is why it is called as primitive. When we say it is primitive, it means it doesn't support all the functionalities needed in the final product, but it supports all functionalities to a limited extent, and you can test the firmware using these limited functionalities. Then the fourth feature is that it lack of real-time behavior. Real-time behavior, that is, it will not. If we're using a simulator, we are just feeding in pre-designed input values into the system. It doesn't run in real-time environment. So we are just simulating certain values, giving in input to the giving in certain inputs and finding out the behavior of the firmware, and it doesn't work in real time. So it lacks real time behavior. These are the four features of simulator-based debugging. That is, it is purely software-based. It does not require the target system. It is very primitive. That is, it lacks input-output operations, and it is not real-time in behavior. These are the four features of simulator-based debugging. Okay. So, what are the features of simulator-based debugging? If we are going to use a simulator to debug the firmware, what are the features? What are the features of simulator-based debugging? Vishnu. Vishnu Ile. Okay. In any one feature of simulator-based debugging. Simulators use the debugging, but what are the features that we get? Simulator-based debugging. What is a simulator? What is a simulator? Is it a software tool or a hardware tool? Okay, it is a software tool which simulates the hardware. So I said there are basically four features. First is first feature is it is a software tool or it is software based. Second is that it does not since we have the software in hand, we can test the firmware using this software. So it doesn't require a target system. The real target system is not needed for debugging. We can debug it using the software that is available. So we needn't wait for the target hardware to become ready. If we have this software tool, then we can test a firmware using this software tool, since it generates all the functionalities of the target system. And it is very primitive, means it lacks most of the features like input, output and all, but we can give the basic functionalities needed to test the firmware. Like you cannot attach keyboard, or you cannot, it will not accept data directly from keyboard, but we can feed in data into the registers available in the software and test the register contents after execution of the firmware. Then, lack of real-time behavior. So it is not put into the actual environment, not working environment. So we are feeding in inputs and checking out the output values to find whether it works correctly. So it doesn't accept any real-time values, except it takes the data that has been given as input by the tester. These are the four features of simulator-based debugging. Then, next is advantages of simulator-based debugging. So, the first advantage is that you don't need the original target board. No need of original target board. Since the software tool supports or it simulates the CPU of the target board, we don't need the original target board for debugging the firmware. So that's why I said earlier that firmware development can start at an early stage, and this will save development time. The development becomes faster since we are not waiting for the target board to get ready. If we have this software tool, then we can test the hardware, test a firmware using this software tool. Then second is that it simulates I/O peripherals. That is, using simulators, it helps us to input values, and the values will be input using registers, and the results of execution will be also obtained through registers. So input output is input and output will be obtained through registers. Then it simulates abnormal conditions. That is, we can change the values of these registers and find out how the firmware responds to these input values. So parameter values can be changed during debugging, and we can test the response of firmware to the change in input values. So you can simulate abnormal conditions. You can give an all range of possible input values and check if the firmware works under all abnormal input conditions. So these are the advantages of using simulator-based debugging. The first one is you don't need the actual target code. You can use the software tool to debug your program. Then second is it simulates I/O peripherals. You don't need any input and output. You can use the registers for giving input and output. Then third is it simulates abnormal conditions. That is, you can give in all possible inputs and test whether your firmware works well under all conditions. Okay, so what are the advantages of simulator-based debugging? What are the advantages? 3 advantages. Can someone say it faster? Hello? No need of target board. Then you don't need the actual hardware target board. Even without the hardware, I can test the embedded product if I have the simulator. Then original target board is not needed. Then it can simulate peripherals. That is, instead of I needn't give any input signals. Without giving actual input, I can test this firmware using the simulated inputs, and these inputs are provided through register values. Then the third one, it can simulate abnormal condition, because since it is a software, we can input different kinds of values, test the firmware using different input values to see if it works under all conditions. Okay, these are the 3 advantages of using simulator-based debugging. Okay, is it clear? Hello? Okay. Any doubt you can ask? പേര് വിളിക്കുമ്പോൾ ആരും റെസ്പോണ്ട് ചെയ്യാത്ത എന്താ? നോട്ട് സ്പീക്കിംഗ്. അൺമ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്ത് സംസാരിക്കാം. ഓക്കെ. Now take your attendance. Number 1. Okay. Number 2. Number 5. Number 6. Number 7. Number 8. Number 9. Number 11. Number 12. Number 13. 14. 16. 17. 18. 20. 22. 23. 24. 26. 27. 27. 27 absent. Okay, Subhan present 28, 29 present, 30. Amrita 30 absent. 31 Ashwati. 32. Okay, 32. 32. Titina, absent. 33. 33, Harita. 33 absent. Number 3, Amal Santosh. Okay. So absent is 27, 30, 32, 33. Number 27, number 30, 32, and 33. Okay, thank you.